Return of the Jedi contains one of my favorite scenes of all time when it comes to sci-fi films. It's not the final duel between Luke and Vader, although that is iconic in its own right. It's what proceeds after, the quiet and unpretentious end of Darth Vader. Luke drags his father's body from the scene of the fight and is begged to remove Darth Vader's helmet and mask. Luke does so, but not before a small protest.
But you'll die.
Nothing can stop that now. Just for once, let me look on you with my own eyes.
Something that I find incredibly striking about this moment is its simplicity. The dialogue is quick, poignant, and effective. The frame composition is focused. The direction is clear. Darth Vader, once a feared and evil ruler of the Galactic Empire, is now unmasked as just some fucking guy who happens to be a not super great dad. He is, of course, a lot of other complicated things, but we might have to get into that another time. But with this, the film wants you to understand that there has always been some goodness within him, that the dark side never held him fully hostage, and that he was still capable of saving his son out of love. Luke begs his father to stay, but he cannot, and Anakin Skywalker draws his last breath. Luke grieves swiftly, which could be criticized, but everyone grieves differently. We have to remember this. The war is won. Luke is visited by the ghosts of Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Yoda, and then the movie is done. What's even more impressive about this scene is that it gives you everything you need. There's no bullshit. Everything is there. I'd like to go as far as to argue that everything you need to write a complex, intriguing, and adventurous origin story for the villain is all in this scene in which Darth Vader is finally unmasked, deperformatized, and revealed as brokenly human. The story of Anakin Skywalker actually starts here, and it also simultaneously ends here.
So what the fuck happened, George? Everything you need is there. Everything. Everything is there for you, so you can go off and write your amazing prequel, sequel, fucking trilogy, whatever, right? It's all there, all in that scene. And there's no way it couldn't be amazing. You would have to be like, let's say you're like a fix-it person, right? You fix things, you build things, and you are tasked with building a fence, right? So you have your hammer, you have your nails, and you have the wood that you need to build the fence, and you take your hammer and you throw it away. You throw it into a river, and then you take your nails and you scatter them in the sand, and then you take the wood that you need for the fence and you burn it. You have a bonfire, and then you go, here's the fence, and the people that you were supposed to build the fence for, they go, what? Welcome to Writing 101. We're going to be talking about 3 different movies today. They're all movies that we all love to hate. The Star Wars prequel trilogy was, I'd argue, the beginning of the end. A skewed telling of a tragic story about a sand-hating man, many overly talented actors, working with a very rigid script, a lot of money, good fight choreo, bad special effects, a retcon plot, poli-sci vomit, a dream, and a guy named George.
This is my life. This is the hole I live in.
We're gonna get into all of that, but first, a few special announcements.
Hi, it's special announcement time. I acknowledge that this video's topic has already been discussed, critiqued, pulled apart, analyzed, all of that within the format of essays, video essays, podcasts, live shows, speculative rewriting, porn. It's endless. I will link below some videos that I have watched many a time and loved. I think they're perceptive, well-written, and entertaining, and I cannot deny that some opinions I have formulated over the years about the prequels are due to the work these videos have already done, and I'm really grateful for that. I wasn't exactly a kid who had much of a critical eye when I first watched The Phantom Menace, but for fun, just let me believe, for the sake of this video, that my opinions are unique.
Or we can rejoice and admit in the opinions that we may share, and y'all can just let me in on the Star Wars prequel trilogy video essay club. In all seriousness, I think a reason I feel the need to engage in this is because I find the discourse surrounding the prequel trilogy to be so compelling, so fascinating, and so very tragic. Second thing is that everything I'm about to say here is from the perspective of a person who has not played the video games and has not watched the animated series The Clone Wars. Please be gentle with me. Afterthoughts don't count as good writing, and retroactive continuity is often mistaken as impressive world building. Third thing, I will not be mocking or belittling Jake Lloyd's performance as the young Anakin in this video. He was 9 years old when The Phantom Menace was filmed. One could argue that there are rarely any good child actors, just good casting, good directors, and luck. If you're looking for a video that bullies child actors, I suggest that you not look elsewhere, but inward.
Alright, so I need everyone to get their pencils out and their paper. We're gonna start now, okay? You're gonna wanna write some of this down. And if you don't have a pencil, it's okay. You've come so unprepared, but I have one for you. So you want to write a tragedy about a villain, a hero's fall from grace, an anti-Jedi, the goodness turned bad, the light side turned dark. This was supposed to be a story about Darth Vader and how he came to be. Everybody was a child once, and this story is about Anakin Skywalker, which is why the movie starts with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. I hope the film's narrative structure continues to be as daring as this.
This is what I like.
Qui-Gon, the Jedi Knight and master to the young Obi-Wan in training, are caught in the crossfires of politics, female silver waitress C-3PO, and the roly-poly boys. We bear witness to the Force Run. We are introduced to the villains of the B-plot, but this early on into the film, we still think it's the A-plot, as in the only fucking plot, and there's a trade dispute. None of this is important. Like, yeah, the blockade in Naboo will lead to some key characters making key choices and affect the plot and lead to an eventual war, but the minute you write the words trade dispute into your screenplay and children are in the theater to watch Natalie Portman chew through George Lucas's clunky political discourse about trade disputes, it's over. Speaking of Natalie, we will watch her over the course of 3 films be in disbelief that she is in these 3 films.
An angel. What?
And I'm not saying that you can't write a trade dispute into your plot about the space war that involves multiple economies working together or against each other. I'm just saying that this plot was confusing to me as a 10-year-old, and it's still confusing to me now. And I understand how money works, but I don't understand that this whole, he said, she said, they said about the trade. Like, is the trade bad? Is the trade not good in this movie? What is trade? I didn't know when I was 10, and The Phantom Menace certainly makes me question that I know what it is now. Actually, can anyone answer me this? What's money? The young Queen Amidala of Naboo has a lot of sick fits and a lot of shit dialogue. She's got a body double, which still confuses me to this day. She and Palpatine discuss the trade disputes. Also, Ian McDiarmid. He's one of the reasons that you're able to get through the movie. He's fantastic. He's treating this movie like the Shakespearean stage it wishes it was. It's pretty great. Now on Naboo, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan run into the one and only Jar Jar Binks. Holy fucking shit.
And then this is you guys.
Let's get out of here before we avoid it.
Dude, this stuff looks great. Oh! Jar Jar is a key to all this. If we get Jar Jar working, because he's a funnier character than we've ever had in any of the movies before.
Well,
the man of the hour, the comedic aggravation, the key to all of this, and the pain behind my joy. Jar Jar not only represents an amalgamation of what the fans point to when asked, "What's wrong with the Phantom Menace?" but he also chews up a large amount of screen time and a large amount of the film's animation budget, which is a tragedy in and of itself. Jar Jar Binks is also George Lucas's favorite Star Wars character, which is a fun fact that I often forget, and whenever I'm reminded that Jar Jar is George Lucas's favorite character, I want to scream, but I do not want any sound to come out. Jar Jar is native to the planet of Naboo and represents a part of the planet's population that has been cast away by Queen Amidala's people. This becomes complicated because we're supposed to be rooting for Amidala and Jar Jar, but we slowly realize that Jar Jar's people have had their land stolen and Amidala is an oppressive and violent force on Naboo. Anyways, they made Jar Jar annoying as all hell so that it's a less complicated moral viewing experience for the audience, so that when we make the decision to ignore the Queen's colonial conquest, it doesn't feel as icky. Yay for us, the audience! I love watching from the moral gray zone high ground. I watched a lot of behind the scenes footage for The Phantom Menace, and something that becomes incredibly apparent very quickly in the pre-production is
Then you actually have to do the shots.
19,000 to create that environment.
I don't care how we get this done, but our budget is $50 million. That's how much money we have. Because it's not just that we have to do it for this picture, we have to do it for 2 more pictures. I mean, nobody can afford to do it at these prices, so.
That they did not have enough money to animate this movie. As for Jar Jar Binks, not only were they uncertain of how they put him on screen, as in maybe he'll be fully computer animated.
One of the things that could make this thing the most special thing in the world is that it is a pure CG character.
No, actually, maybe he's an actor on set.
What we're trying to do in the end is speed up the animation.
No, actually, now we need a bigger prosthetic for the actor to wear.
All the shots that he's in, which is 461, the difference of the approach we would take without a suit is about $1.3 million.
We have the guy anyway. We're shooting the guy anyway. So if you have the guy in the suit, it costs you the aggravation of how does he stand it in the suit, the wear and tear in the suit. Well, $1 million saved is $1 million earned.
No, now we need some motion captured footage because he's gonna be fully animated. Yeah, no, the actor actually was just a placeholder to animate on top of, so we didn't even need to pay an actor to be here. Hope that money wasn't important and couldn't have been used in a better way. Actually, no, we didn't know how we were gonna put him on screen, but now he looks like this.
Does it look good?
Not only was there a lot of uncertainty there, but George simultaneously seems confused and convinced of who Jar Jar Binks is and what he does. I mean, he's undeniably the key to all of this. There's a super great footage of George speaking with Ahmed Best, the actor who portrays Jar Jar Binks, or who eventually portrays Jar Jar Binks, and he's giving him some direction about his character walk. A character walk is this thing that you make actors do to make them overthink a character to the point of just caricature. So it's often the worst.
He's got a great walk and everything, and when he translated into Jar Jar, it was great.
So he's giving him some tips on his character walk. George is like, yeah, that, just swing your arms like that and bob your head. Yeah, just do that.
Oh, the sort of loose arms that kind of don't have much in them.
John knows this movement, yeah.
Does it look good?
So Ahmed Best does just that. He does it for the entire trilogy, and it looks so fucking stupid. And no amount of a $30 million animation budget could change the day that George made the incredible director mistake, which is looking at your actor and saying, yeah, that's perfect. Just do that. Because your actor will listen to you. And they will do exactly what you want. And they will do just that. And then you're fucking screwed. God,
Jar Jar Binks is just haunting, isn't he?
Okay, that's good.
We are then introduced to more of Jar Jar's people, the Gungans, whose leader motorboats the air in agreement or disapproval. I'm not sure which is which, and we learn that Jar Jar is an outcast. I wonder why. Meanwhile, the trade dispute. I'm gonna continue to address the B plot that we thought was the A plot that we do not think should be in the movie as just the trade dispute, because I don't have time to actually mentally unpack what is even happening. It just causes for Queen Amidala's double and Queen Amidala's doubles. Whoa, okay. For Queen Amidala's double and Queen Amidala's double's handmaiden, who is the real Queen Amidala, to be put in danger. And the main city is occupied by the B plot. Queen Amidala's double and Queen Amidala's double's handmaiden, who is the real Queen Amidala, to be put in danger, and the main city is occupied by the B plot. As of now, we still think that the B plot is the A plot, as in the only plot. Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Jar Jar are in a submarine. You will soon come to realize that there are parts of the prequels that could have been cut out, as they have almost zero effect on the course of the story or its characters. Writing tip number 1, don't write shit into your story that is useless. Even spectacle should have purpose. Queen Amidala's double is saved, as well as her handmaidens. One of them is Natalie Portman. Can you tell that she's the queen in disguise? And Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are all going to Coruscant. Disclaimer. I cannot say, meaning I cannot pronounce any of these planets' names for the life of me, okay? It's Coruscant. They go to this planet. They go to the planet that has they go to the city planet. But first, they have to make a road trip piss stop on the planet of Tatooine. I can say that one. In hopes to find a hyperdrive generator. Remember Tatooine? Remember Tatooine? That one's the desert one.
I think I sense a disturbance in the B plot.
It's the moment we've all been waiting for. It's the young Skywalker. Anakin Skywalker and his mother Shmi are slaves owned by a junk dealer named Watto. Jesus. He is simultaneously a flying gonzo and a flying garbanzo bean. Qui-Gon senses that Anakin is strong with the Force and that he may be the prophesized Chosen One. The Chosen One is a person who will bring balance to the Force. I still don't know what that actually means. When asked who the boy's father is, Shmi claims that there never was a father. And she doesn't mean that the father is non-present in Anakin's life, or that she does not know who the father is, but that there literally never was a father ever. I have some thoughts, George Lucas. Not only have you been criticized for writing a specific sort of hollowness into your characters who are women, George, but you also have robbed your character Shmi here of her own subjectivity over her reproductive rights. Realistically, Shmi did not randomly become pregnant unless you were actually suggesting that the Immaculate Conception has occurred for the sake of religious parallel within the narrative. If Anakin is to be the Chosen One archetype, the Jesus, the savior of all men, then Shmi is Mary. And just like in the Bible, nobody gives a shit about what she thinks or feels. Shmi is a vessel and treated as such by the narrative, but I'd like to refute the religious parallels suggested, and I'll explain why in a second. There are two popular theories that have circulated over the years, and they are both strongly based in what the films already give us, so I think they're both worth noting. The first one is that the Force created Anakin. It would explain why Anakin has such a high level of midichlorians in his blood. What's a midichlorian, you ask? Well, besides Jar Jar Binks, it's another heavily criticized aspect of these films. They are microscopic, they live in your cells, and can determine how Force sensitive you are. Again, they're only mentioned in the prequels, so they are, you guessed it, very silly. The second popular theory is that Palpatine created Anakin by manipulating the dark side of the Force in order to create life. This is something we will talk about more when we get to it, but basically, in both theories, Shmi is Force raped. She becomes pregnant against her will, and I'm guessing that due to her slave status and the great lack of medical resources to her disposal, she continued to have not much of a choice in the entire matter. I would like to interpret her lack of elaboration or detailing when asked about Anakin's father as a trauma response. She may not want to tell Qui-Gon as he is a new person in her life, a complete stranger, or she just may not want to talk about it at all. I've decided to interpret this part of the story not because I'm reaching, but because if you want to analyze Shmi as a character, you need to hand her humanity and therefore her subjectivity back to her. I refuse to engage in the immaculate conception suggested by Shmi in her dialogue with Qui-Gon because it is an oversimplified answer to a complicated event that George has written into Anakin and Shmi's backstories. George has essentially written the experience of pregnancy, whether planned or not, in his image. Kind of. You need to treat Shmi as a person, not a vessel, and when you do that, the magical and mysterious there is no father story falls apart. There are a lot of instances in the prequels where what a character says or does suggests that they're not human characters worth respect, but abiding by larger narrative motivations to tell a specific story directed by a specific ideology. As much as tragedy lends itself to be character-driven, for some reason, George restricts characters like Shmi to the simplicity of an object, a prop or a vessel that will then be possessed to make unnatural decisions, such as letting Anakin go off on a great adventure to be trained as a Jedi by this complete stranger. The plot contorts Shmi's decision to let Anakin go as something she allows because she wants what's best for her son and wishes him to live a life of freedom. Realistically, I don't know if Shmi would have allowed her son to go, because other than her dialogue that surrounds her son, I don't know a lot about Shmi. And for the sake of getting Anakin off of Tatooine and into the greater plot, she conveniently must let him go without her. Shmi is a powerless character beyond her position in Tatooine society as a slave, which is unfortunate. Not only because I'm attempting to analyze the film through a feminist lens, but maybe as a writer, you should just treat all of your characters as human and see that the complexities that reveal themselves in that will bring you a better, more honest story. If you're working against the grain of characters, in this case, forcing Shmi to be a submissive but core part of Anakin's story, you are left with an empty feeling. It's disingenuous. It's the easy way out. It sucks. This movie is considered the worst of the three prequels by many, many fans. But so far, you might be thinking, well, this isn't that bad. Well, George seemed to be leaning on about 4 major sequences to make this film great. Major spectacles, if you will. The first seems to be that Jar Jar doesn't get anything to drink here in his cup. And his cup is also different than everyone else's, and yet he still sips from it. This part of the movie is often overlooked. They had $30 million. The second sequence, one that is much more well known, is the overwhelmingly long and boring pod racing sequence. Anakin Skywalker, a child, a minor, a 9-year-old, the chosen one, who is a slave, is now tasked with racing for his freedom in his homemade shitty pod, which is basically a tiny spaceship, which is basically a go-kart. I'm just gonna say it. Why couldn't Qui-Gon just kidnap or steal away or save? Why couldn't he just save Anakin and his mother off of Tatooine and away from Gonzo? And you might go, well, Claudia, it's because Qui-Gon made a bet with Gonzo that if Anakin wins the race, he wins his freedom. He can't leave Tatooine with Qui-Gon. That's the story. Okay, but why does Qui-Gon have to be a man of his word? He already messed with fate, right? By force dice flip, force cheat, force dice cheat. This does not include the freeing of his mother, Shmi. Shmi is not allowed to tag along on this adventure because she's a mom, and that would be lame. And if Anakin had his mom around, then maybe he wouldn't have turned into the fucking dark side, and then what? Then there's no The Phantom Menace. Claudia. This whole movie is falling apart at the seams. Other than this being an unimaginable, you just can't believe it. It's a great amount of stress for a child to be put under. This sequence also has no stakes because obviously Anakin will be freed. Obviously Anakin is not going to explode on the go-kart racetrack, and obviously everything's going to be great. This is the midway high point to the story structure. It functions to give us all hope that the movie will end soon because the pod racing sequence runs about 15 minutes long, which is very long. It also looks like this, which is gross. Now this is gross. Anakin wins the pod race. Fucking yippee. This is one of the only parts of the movie where I feel something, mostly because I feel bad for Shmi and because I feel bad for the 9-year-old Jake Lloyd doing his best to convey deep emotional something out of nothing. Anakin promises that he will one day return to Tatooine to free his mother. They bring Anakin to Yoda in Coruscant. Coruscant?
A speeder.
And Yoda goes, he is strong with the Force, but something's a little off. I just have this sneaking suspicion that Anakin is going to become Darth Vader. The next sequence in the film that you could tell George was really banking on is the Darth Maul fight. I have nothing but good things to say about this fight. The pacing is right, the tension is right, the choreo is fucking near perfect. Darth Maul has my whole entire heart and soul. The fight utilizes its environment. There's like these laser doors. Where was laser door level of creativity when you wrote the remaining 2 hours of the film, George? Because this was pretty great, you know? You're using your environment to create tension for the fight, but also it serves the purpose of showing character. Qui-Gon sits and meditates. Obi-Wan, you can tell that he's still a Jedi in training. Darth Maul is pacing like an animal. At the 2/3 mark of the fight, Maul uppercuts Qui-Gon with the hilt of his lightsaber, and he fucking stabs him in the gut. He kills him. Apart from this being genuinely shocking upon first watch, again, the emotional tone and the tension is right. The 3-beat movement, that little pop, 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 that was like dance. The music just punctuates the shit out of it. It's drama, camp, tragedy, it's all there. Pure Star Wars. Good fight choreo is important for good storytelling. Okay? That's just know that. Anyways, Qui-Gon is like killed by Darth Maul. Obi-Wan avenges his master by slicing Maul down. It's fantastic. And Obi-Wan holds Qui-Gon as he dies. Qui-Gon tells Obi-Wan that he must take the young Skywalker under his wing and train him as his own Padawan because he's the chosen one who will bring balance to the Force. If this happened to me, in a less serious circumstance, if someone was like, hey, can you babysit this fucking kid for me for the rest of your life? Excuse me, no? No, thank you. Okay, so the last thing that George was banking on to just make this movie is the Battle of Naboo, which is a battle between the Gungans and the droid army. I don't know why we needed this fight, and I get it, it's to wrap up the B plot. I don't care about the B plot, the A plot is done now, right? It's done. So the movie's like, let's wrap it up. The Gungans are gonna fight the droid army on the Windows backdrop. Can you imagine having an animation budget of upwards of 20 to 30 million US dollars? Millions of dollars. I don't even know what $1 million, what does that look like? Does it look like this? You know, in the final screening, you sit in a little movie theater, it's quite quiet, it's a great space to focus. So when this part of the movie came up and like occurred, did you not look at it? Did we not look at the screen? Did we nap through the end of the movie? This scene just makes me wanna I remember the PS2 Lego Star Wars level of this battle, and it looks better than what the movie looks like. George, this went on VHS tapes and like DVD, you know? This footage is available in people's houses in a concrete way, you know? Do you ever think about that? My question is, how am I supposed to feel when I look at this?
may have gone too far in a few places.
Pensivid is often translated as the call of the void. Levid, although it is often translated as the void, it also just means empty or emptiness. And when I think of the word void, I think of something quite dramatic. It's darkness, it's melodrama, but emptiness is just empty. So, how can a frame be so cluttered with such emptiness is my question.
Bold in terms of jerking people around, but
Sitting in there.
Yeah.
no, I know.
And it starts open and you don't know what the hell.
I do. It is a very hard movie to follow, and at the same time, I've done it a little more extremely than I've ever done in the past.
Anyway.
It's stylistically designed to be that way, and it's intense for us.
Yeah, we don't know what
A regular person's gonna go nuts.
Also, they win the battle. There's a funeral for Qui-Gon. This scene is pretty well executed. It's well lit. Cinematography-wise, can you tell that I never went to film school? I'm like, cinematography-wise, it's great. There's this side shot. There's this profile, right, of Palpatine. Oh, he's the guy who's evil. He's the Sith Lord and he's the politician. Obi-Wan is still processing that he now has to babysit Anakin. At one point, Palpatine was made a chancellor, by the way, meaning he has much more political power. It becomes important later on, okay? So yeah, the funeral scene, although short, it is well executed and communicates the emotions our main characters are being left with. And the movie should have ended here. But no, the Gungans and Amidala on Naboo rejoice and have a post-war celebration parade. It's a drastic and unwanted tonal shift. There is an orb of peace exchanged. I don't, what is he supposed to do with it? It's like a ball. It's a ball of energy. What is he, what is it for? And then the Phantom of the Opera is done. The Phantom Menace is done. The Phantom. Please only write one ending for your story. In its final draft, you don't need two endings. Start the movie where it's supposed to start and end the movie when it's supposed to stop. Is this even in frame?
Does it look good?
The character of Jar Jar Binks was particularly reviled by fans. I'm sorry if they don't like it, Lucas said. They should go back and see The Matrix or something. A bit later, it is written, here we go, this is about some criticism that was received, about the Phantom Menace, because some people did criticize it. It's written that the director had gotten sidetracked by technology. Sure, the visuals were breathtaking, but the heart was gone, along with all the naivete that had given Star Wars its inevitable appeal. The man who'd claimed that engaging an audience was simple, all you had to do was wring a kitten's neck, had gotten lost in machines. Whether he knows it or not, George Lucas is the king of camp. And there is absolutely nothing that we can do about that. Is The Matrix supposed to be less silly or more silly than Star Wars? Because is The Matrix supposed to be a serious film, or is in this situation, is he saying that Star Wars is the serious film and Matrix is the silly child? Imagine being you don't like Star Wars? Go fucking watch that stupid ass movie, The Matrix.
Wring a kitten's neck. Okay.
Earlier how I said how most fans agree that The Phantom Menace is the worst film of the prequels. I think I lied because upon rewatching Attack of the Clones, I realized that maybe Attack of the Clones is worse. Attack of the Clones is a very weird movie. And although the narrative structure is more cohesive than Phantom, Attack of the Clones is also super rough because it starts off with a god complex riddled teenage boy protagonist. All I care about are these two. Okay? This? I don't know who the fuck this is. I don't want to know. This is Hayden Christensen. I had a crush on him when I was 11 years old. Attack of the Clones takes place 9 to 10 years later after Phantom. Anakin is a reckless Jedi in training, Padme's Queen Amidala's body double is blown up, and a state of constant unrest permeates the Galactic Senate. The film wants us to understand that Anakin does not follow orders well, he's cocky, overbearing, which, as we all know, are the first signs of eventual evil. Obi-Wan stands opposite to these qualities. He's composed, reserved, proficient, and focused. In this movie, we mostly follow Padme and Anakin's character development and growing relationship. It is determined that Padme must return to her home planet of Naboo to take refuge amidst the looming civil war and ominous threats on Coruscant. There's some shit going on politically, not a trade dispute this time, but there's like a separatist movement, and the Jedi, they find themselves in the middle of it. And then Palpatine wants more power. It's really confusing. Before Anakin escorts Padme to Naboo, and after the first attempt to assassinate her, there's this scene where centipedes try to kill Padme in her sleep. So I hate centipedes, and this scene literally makes me gag. I cannot watch this scene. I don't want to think about this scene. We're done talking about it. Anakin and Obi-Wan save Padme. They attempt to track down the assassin. In this grotesquely animated sequence of flying cars, skyscrapers, cyberpunk vomit, concrete jungle obsoleteness.
What took you so long? Oh, you know, Master. I couldn't find a speeder that I really liked. I'm deeply sorry, Master. If you'll excuse me.
But the assassin is sniped and shapeshifts before anything meaningful can come of any of it. Obi-Wan's job is to figure out who sniped the assassin. Anakin's job is going to be to protect and watch over Padme while on Naboo. And while she's gone, Jar Jar is going to be taking over her position on the Senate to fulfill her duties. So Obi-Wan is going to go off to the perpetually reigning planet of Kamino, where he discovers that a clone army is being secretly created for the Republic. I wonder if the clone army is gonna attack or something. The tension is palpable. The whole time Obi-Wan is being given a tour of the clone army training process, he puts on his best shocked Pikachu meme face because, ethically speaking, the Jedi training program is not that much different than the clone army program he's being presented with. The Jedi are not clones per se, but they're not an army who began training children to then eventually be peacekeepers. Also, Obi-Wan is not in shock that it's a clone army training program. He's in shock that he wasn't aware of it prior. Like, nobody told me about any of this. That's not the problem, Obi-Wan. The problem is not that you weren't in on it. The problem is that it is a clone army. While Obi-Wan makes the decision to obviously demonstrate that he's in a rush to tell Yoda and the Jedi Council about the clone army, about the suspected assassin killer, and about these neck people. The alien design is going to be neck. He gets caught in a Jango Fett bring your son to work day shootout. Oh wait, are they all his sons? Like all of the clones, they're all his sons, right? But why are they all named Boba Fett? Why is this son the one who's allowed to tag along? Like, why is he the special clone? Is he the first clone? Is that why it's his son? George sure loves to just write mothers out of their own narratives. Like, they all just came from him. They all, women, mothers, people who can bear children, people who can bear subjective discourse on body politics. they complicate things. They're too emotional. No, I prefer the cold, sterile, masculine, logical harshness of science to justify cloning. Jango Fett is the sniper working for the Sith, and he's the one who sniped the assassin, and they have a little chase scene, and Obi-Wan hides on a meteor. Okay. Anyways, while all of this is happening, Anakin is busy babysitting Padme, and Padme is busy babysitting Anakin on their Naboo vacation. They are kissing, they are literally running around in fields. Here, Anakin shares his thoughts on politics.
The trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to.
I need everyone to get their red flags out every time Anakin from now on says something that warrants a red flag.
Sounds an awful lot like a dictatorship to me.
Well, if it works.
Okay? Wave him up high and keep him there for a bit, okay? He just starts saying things to Padme, just real unprompted. I'd like to also think about what would have happened if Anakin was literally trampled here while on duty to protect Padme. How incredible and sad would that have been? Because if Anakin would have been trampled, then we would have been spared to watch this scene, the infamous Padme in a leather bondage-like dress, sharing dinner with the pair-stealing teenage asshole Anakin fucking Skywalker.
Love story. There's still a lot of action and war. It's sort of a love story against the backdrop of war.
Anakin professes his love for Padme like the childish teenager that he is.
Not a day has gone by when I haven't thought of you. I'm in agony. I can't breathe. I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me. You are in my very soul, tormenting me.
And Padme does the grown-up mature thing and refuses to accept Anakin's dark, nasty confession. She tells him that it would be impossible for them to pursue a romantic relationship, and that her duty as a senator prevails any feelings that she or Anakin may have. She states that she will not allow him to give up his future as a Jedi for her, but I'd like to think that she's just saying that to be polite. And then Anakin says the very red flag line of, "Believe me, I wish that I could just wish away all of my feelings." And then we get what some may consider the most iconic scene and even the most iconic line of all of Star Wars. Nothing will ever top the pacing, emotional tension, and the heartbreak of the "I don't like sand" scene.
I don't like sand. It's cold. It gets out.
Okay, so the line is, "I don't like sand. It's coarse, rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere."
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
So before we poke fun at Anakin's statement here, let's actually unpack what is Anakin actually saying? Because we can analyze the honest but small statement uttered by Anakin here in two different ways. We can analyze it literally at face value, right? What is sand? He doesn't like it, right? So I don't like sand, right? What's sand? It's coarse, right? Rough, irritating. Okay, so these are three descriptors of sand. What is sand? It's coarse. We can agree on that. Rough. Yes, okay. And irritating, which I don't know anybody who would think that sand can't be irritating, but I'm assuming in a worst case scenario in which you are rubbing your body all over with sand, that would be irritating, right? So if anybody has any objection to that, okay. And he also adds something that sand does. It gets everywhere, right? It gets everywhere, okay? So, another way that we can look at the statement here is by diving a little bit deeper. Anakin is attempting to share of himself with Padme. In this scene, she reminisces on her childhood, playing outside by the water, on the beach, swimming and lying on the sand. Padme's memories of childhood are bright, warm, and full of sunshine. She remembers the sand fondly. Then, Anakin famously adds that he has a distaste for it because it's what? It's coarse, rough, irritating. It gets everywhere. We can also understand that Anakin's memories of sand are not warm. Anakin's home planet of Tatooine is full of sand. It's where he was living with his mother as a child slave, facing relentless abuse, and being exposed to a deeply violent environment at a very young age. It's a place of trauma, sadness, and loneliness for Anakin. In this exchange, we're not only learning of Padme's bright childhood and her fond memories of the beach, or of Anakin's dislike for sand and the dark memories that are attached to it, but the ways in which Anakin and Padme are very, very different. Unfortunately, this is all very funny, right? So the line is funny, the delivery is funny, even like what happens after is that Padme and Anakin make out. I just don't see how this is a turn on. So whatever character work that is attempted here is completely overshadowed by just how fucking stupid I don't like sand sounds. I think it is important to understand how different Padme and Anakin are. A thematic through line of the trilogy is that A thematic through line in the trilogy is that Padme and Anakin's differences in upbringing, ideology, and values will cost them their life together. The story penalizes Anakin for not being able to side with Padme and choose the light. So something along the lines of "I don't like sand" needed to happen in order to reveal directly how these two have led very different lives that have granted them very different outlooks on simple things like the beach and sand. I'm sure there were more effective, emotionally complex, or interesting ways to reveal these differences other than telling the audience who the characters are rather than showing. And what we can also maybe draw from this fractured writing of the scene, that's a big maybe. Again, it's not your fault if you were like, this scene is stupid and that's it, and it left your brain as soon as it entered it. That's like totally, if the writing isn't treating everything as meaningful in a way that is not fucking stupid, then that's not your fault. That's the writer's fault. That's the director's fault. It's barely the actor's fault, but it also might be Hayden Christensen's fault.
And it gets everywhere.
What we can maybe draw is that Padme had the benefit of being raised in a beautiful world in which nature is soft, lush, and innocently immediate. Anakin's upbringing taught him to see the world as immediate in a different way. The scene not only tells us that Anakin and Padme's upbringings were different, but how their continued outlooks on life are affected. I think the scene is so memorably bad to the point of being iconic and representative of the prequel's overall issues because, again, it's stupid. It's not grand, it's not in depth, it's stupid. So if you're providing your character with the moral dilemma of becoming a Jedi good, or giving into lustful desire caused by women bad, if that isn't enough, then what about making your protagonist just sense with the Force that his mom is dying? Anakin fears that his mother is in great danger back home on Tatooine, so he abandons his duty to watch over Padme on Naboo, convinces her that she must come with him. I don't know why she has to come with him. Departs for Tatooine to potentially save his mother. The film frames this as a bad thing that Anakin does, that he is being swayed by emotions, that he is weakened by the care and love he has for his mother. He should be pushing that intrusive emotional intuition downwards and sticking his head in the sand and being a man, a Jedi. I meant to say Jedi. Are the Jedi like metaphors for toxic Western ideals of manhood? I don't know. I'm not a man. I'm just hanging out. Anakin tracks his mother down and finds the Tusken Raiders have kidnapped her from her home, which is now a moisture farm. By the way, she's no longer a slave, she's just married, but she was kidnapped and is being held captive, tied to a post, and beaten in this tent. Anakin unties his mother, holds her, and you can tell that George Lucas really wanted this scene to be important for Anakin, but not for Shmi, because they couldn't bother to spend about 30 extra minutes adjusting her facial prosthetics. Just look at that harsh, unset edge on her face cut prosthetic. I can see the edge, George. It's rough, it's crusty. Can we get some spirit gum on the set of the dying Shmi in her son's arms scene? Can we get a makeup artist on set immediately? We are supposed to believe that she has been severely beaten and is now dying. I can't. I know it's fake, but I do not want to be reminded it's fake. Okay? Anakin then massacres all the Tuskens in the camp for what they did to his mother. The film wants us to know that this is a bad thing because Yoda gets a headache. And when he returns to the moisture farm where Shmi's husband and Padme waits, Anakin silently carries her wrapped body to the house and looks at everyone like they were somehow involved in this. Like they didn't give her up, she was kidnapped. He tells Padme of what he did and specifies that he killed the women and children along with the men. Everybody get your red flags out.
And I slaughtered them like animals.
This is the part where Padme realistically should have just gotten on her little spaceship and just zoomed the fuck out of there. I'm not blaming Padme. She stays by the side of Anakin, but Jesus. This is the part of the movie that most people understand as Anakin's shift or change, because killing an entire camp of Tusken Raiders, although they were the captors of Shmi and the reasons for her death, is undeniably a very scary thing to do. Obi-Wan is on the planet that is red, made of mud and mosquitoes called Geonosis. Why do all of the planets look like shit, dude? And he finds out a bunch of important information, like there's a droid army, and Count Dooku is evil. His name is Count. How could he not be evil? He texts the Jedi Council and transmits his location to Anakin and Padme, but is captured. Oh no! Dooku tells Obi-Wan that he should join the dark side, that Palpatine now is in control of the Senate. Good job watching over the Senate while Padme was gone, Jar Jar Binks. This entire scene is unintentionally sexy because I like to imagine that Obi-Wan and Dooku are exes who like to hate fuck. I don't know if I can say that. Can I say hate fuck on YouTube? Is that? During all of this, Anakin and Padme arrive on Geonosis and oh god. Okay, so there's the conveyor belt scene. Fun fact, when I wrote this section of the video, I thought that the word conveyor, like in conveyor belt, was spelt and pronounced conveyor, but it's not, it's conveyor, because conveyor isn't a word, class. So what feels like a solid 45 minutes of my life, Anakin and Padme are on a fully CGI conveyor belt that seems like it's manufacturing droids and weapons and melting down old parts and metal. This sequence also does not establish anything about Padme and Anakin's characters, their fighting style, their relationship, their moods, nothing. It's spectacle without story. It sucks.
You get your chance alone! Oh, it's a nightmare! He's always getting himself into trouble. I'm so confused.
Anakin and Padme finally make it off the conveyor belt, but are immediately captured by Jango Fett. Good job! Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan are now being charioted
out to their mosquito-spectated, brutal, and gory executions, but not before Padme and Anakin can tell each other that they love each other.
Been in love with Padme ever since he was 10 years old.
According to Wikipedia, the Star Wars Encyclopedia website that is sponsoring my entire brain power at this point, the creatures that enter the arena who are very, very hungry are a Reek, a Nexu, and an Acklay. The Acklay is my personal favorite. They are baby, and I love them.
What about Padme? She seems to be on top of things.
Padme is attacked by a Nexu, her lower back clawed with 3 deep, painful gashes, cutting her top in half to reveal a perfect crop top.
The male gaze is so delicate, so unmotivated, and so compassionate sometimes. Wouldn't you say? George, you're a genius. You've mixed the shock of violence and the surprise of a reveal and outfit change into one perfect, succinct moment in which I, the viewing audience, feel a mixture of disgust, fear, and grief. It's like the weight of misogyny presses, but the freedom of object becoming beckons me. That crop top has me in a chokehold, is what I'm saying. What does that even mean?
Ensure that the author's hand has an omnipresence so potent that the viewing experience become uncomfortable, almost existential. Grief is insistent, dear friends. Crop tops are forever.
The scene continues and consists of our human bait characters freeing themselves, animal cruelty, the Jedi and their clone army arrive,
This party's over.
and we bear witness to a full-on, full-frontal CGI Jedi versus droid massacre, which ends in the cruel death of Boba Fett's father. Mace Windu just comes in and he slices Jango Fett's head clean off in front of his child. Imagine if he lifted up the helmet and then the head fell out. Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan escape the arena chaos along with the remaining Jedi and the clone army being led by Yoda, I think. I'm still confused who's in charge of the clone army right now. I'm sure there's like a show all about it or something. Padme falls off the ship because the movie wants us to know that she's a girl and girls are stupid, I guess. So we're nearing the end of Attack of the Clones, which means lightsaber duel battle time. Except this round, we're not fighting Darth Maul. We're fighting Obi-Wan's ex-boyfriend because Count Dooku is now a part of the dark side. He gets lightning hands. He then cuts off Anakin's arm, which is a little dramatic on his part. Yeah, just like wave the lightsaber around your face and body and it'll look like you're fighting or even trying to threaten the opponent, and we'll just stay on that for like a few frames. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think we got it. Count Dooku flees. I don't remember the end of this fight, but he's like running away. I'm sure he'll show up later. I can't wait to see him again. Anakin and Padme will secretly wed on Naboo. Padme's dress is the reason I'm bisexual. R2 and C-3PO watch them make out, those freaks, and Attack of the Clones is done. What do we know going into the next movie? Anakin can't follow orders, becoming evil. Padme is trying her best. They are secretly married. Obi-Wan is over it. This could have just been an email, George. I don't know why you had to do all of this.